Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Kang, president of Informs at MSU, Mississippi State. And today we will have a senior graduate panel with our graduating PhD candidates. And yes, please introduce yourselves with your majors.
So I'm Durant Fullington. I am a PhD student. I'll be doing my proposal soon, defending soon, and I plan to graduate in winter of 2024.
Hello everyone, I am Mahathir Mohammad Bappi, PhD candidate in the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering. My research focus is on advanced manufacturing systems and data analytics. And I will graduate soon, and I already accepted an offer in Louisiana State University.
I'm Christian Zamella. I'm a PhD candidate in the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department, and I study data-driven process quality control and additive manufacturing. And I plan to graduate this May.
Okay, yes, and thank you so much for introducing yourselves. We will start with some questions. Well, at one point or where did you have the most difficulty, like during your PhD journey? So what was the most difficult moments and those moments?
I'll start, I guess. I started my PhD during COVID.
Oh my gosh.
I was here. I've been here since 2019, and when I started, it was kind of hard to. I didn't have any programming experience, and I didn't know what application I was going into. So there was a huge learning curve, I would say, from going from an applied math degree to an engineering degree. And so that's where I had to like really buckle down and like do my own studying, that's where you really you have to do your own self-learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like you get to learn skills outside the classroom. And that's where, and we had to study, and I had to go and study a lot of the work I had to do. I had to go study like the physics or the mechanics behind 3D printing, and then also study computer science, study like embedded systems and all this other stuff on the other side of things that I wasn't familiar with. And so when doing it all at the same time, that was the hardest part. One came out better for it, but that's challenging.
So like background knowledge was probably one of the harder parts for not just classes, but for
research. And then just like domain knowledge in that field is hard to accumulate because it's very specific. It's not something you don't take class. They're developing classes, but you don't take a class on additive manufacturing.
Right.
So
like I may share as an like international student, the perspective can be two ways, like firstly to adapt myself in the different country, in different environment. This was one challenge, firstly. And same, I started during COVID, just started COVID. And that was one thing. And then like adapting with the education system here, like, and the courses, the teaching style is different, the assignment homeworks, to keep pace with this and maintaining like the research simultaneously to learn new things, new experimentation for data like this. So all these things like, and make some friend is also another important thing to stay here. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of echo what they were saying. I didn't start during COVID, so I guess my approach is a little bit different. I mean, that's a big challenge, right? That I didn't have to go through. But I will say, I think the hardest part is like your first year or so getting into it, because there's like three key things you have to figure out. And the first, and one that's kind of challenging to some people, is self-guided learning and self-motivation. So undergrad, your deadlines are laid out by your professors, unless you're doing research, that's a different story. But your learning style as a high school and an undergraduate student in America is pretty much on campus. You do your assignments and they're due here, and you go through the progress. It's very structured.
Mm-hmm.
You get to PhD, your classes are still structured. You still have the same canvas and everything like that, but the objectives you have to accomplish through research are not. You have to kind of set your own timelines, understand your soft, hard deadlines, and how to navigate that. That's the first big challenge. Second challenge is the culture of academia. You need to like understand not only how to communicate effectively in that world. At least from my perspective as an undergrad student, I was always interested in manufacturing and industry, so I never really thought about grad school until I was in grad school. So it was a little bit different approach for me. But having to readjust myself to, okay, how do I write papers that communicate my thoughts clearly, effectively, and follow very good structure that's able to be published and that kind of stuff. Learning how to do that, you go from not doing that at all to we gotta write papers, publish papers. So there's definitely a learning curve with that. And like Chris was saying, the last thing is when you get into your project, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Like you've got so much information being thrown at you. You have to learn how to use your tools like coding, Python, MATLAB, R. If you've never done it before, you got to learn how to do that. You've also got to learn all these. If you do machine learning, deep learning things like we're doing, you have to learn how to run these models, these different libraries, how to tune the models. You got to learn a little bit about all these different disciplines that may not even be the same discipline as your project to help you accomplish that goal. So there was just so much information to go through and understand what's useful and not. So those are the three things I think are difficult to get started with.
I'd like to ask about the communication part. Are you saying that your communication had to be, like, was this interpersonal, written, or was you saying specifically when you were writing your papers that the communication had to be more precise in what you wanted to describe?
I think what I really mean on that is how to write in a way that the readers are expecting, like writing in a certain way, laying out how you did your analysis, laying out all that stuff. And from my experience in manufacturing and stuff, when I was working co-op and internships and in undergrad, your reports are a lot shorter, a lot more to the point.
Right.
You still need to show that the work you did was valid and you did your case studies and you've proven it in academia. There's a lot more that goes into validating things like your hyperparameters, validating the case study, the data you've collected. There's a lot of information that you need to still be concise about. So I guess the hardest part was learning what is important to communicate and then how to structure that in a paper, given either a page limit or, trying to stay on topic and keep all that together. So that's kind of what I was referring more to the paper writing, I guess.
Okay.
Because you still have to be able to clearly communicate, just like you would in a normal situation. It's just the information that you communicate might just be a little bit different and maybe not something you're used to.
There's definitely a style to writing in the sense of like writing research papers, like the big idea, and then breaking it down into the smaller areas and your deep dive into like what you're actually doing, opposed to like if you're writing to a funding agency and you're telling them what you're doing, you're just kind of telling a story instead of like giving a big picture idea. There's just there's a certain style and a way you have to sell your work is what I think one of the good things I think our advisors are good at teaching us is like how to sell what you're doing and show the need for it and how you're solving a challenging problem.
And there's a culture in academia too. You just have to learn to navigate. That's part of the writing and stuff, how you communicate, how you show stuff, understanding what they're expecting. It's all kind of like industry has a culture, there's an academic culture.
And I will say like the publishing, even first paper is the critical. It will take much more time because you need to like learn everything, technical writings, codings, data, experimentation, and then communicate with advisors, and then finding the appropriate journal to submit. This is the PhD journey.
We'll move on to the next questions. So I think this one hasn't been asked yet, but how did you create relationships with your advisors and other faculty members?
I can start this one off since Christian's done it. We'll go the opposite direction. So I'm probably gonna be a different response than back in Christian because I went undergrad here, so kind of knew almost all of my professors that are here. So that was a little bit different working with them, but I guess my relationship with my research advisor who I have now, it's more of a, I treat it as like a work relationship. So you go and everything's professional and just kind of keeping very open communication, letting them know your progress. Working with them for the first time, if you don't know them, it's a little bit harder. You have to kind of figure out their communication style. But I would say the most important thing to do first is to understand how they communicate and what they want. Some professors might want updates regularly. Some might not care and only want an update once a month. Understanding the communication style goes a long way. And then, making sure that you, especially in the beginning, are very attentive to what they want you to do and making sure, even if you're not going to get it right the first time, because believe me, when you're starting off in the PhD, you probably will make a lot of mistakes. It happens. But making sure that you're learning from those mistakes and helping build up that confidence from your advisor helps a lot too. But for meeting new professors and stuff in grad school, I think we have several professors that we've hired since I've started, at least undergrad. So I didn't get to meet them until graduate school. it's just getting to go to their classes and then seeing them in the hallway and just starting up small conversations, just kind of learning where their interests are and just having just little conversations, working with some of their students and stuff and kind of building up a relationship. It takes time, but just kind of using it, keeping it all professional and using it as a way just to learn about them and then showing just a little bit of interest goes a long way, I think.
I would say you can make connections. I would say I make connections in a variety of different ways. When I first came to MSU, I came on a visit before I was going to come here, and I met my advisor because I was interested in doing statistical modeling, machine learning, not necessarily sitting. Your advisors are a key component when you build connections. One was putting me in connection with Dr. Tion because we were all working in additive space. So they're building these own connections. Then I also work at CAVS where my advisor was doing this. That's where his lab is focused. And he built connections with new PIs, especially when he left Mississippi State. I have to build off his connections. And then I would say like there even outside of that, like going to different talks, going to classrooms, like he said, you get to build connections off that, and then just like through the community. This is a small, especially here at Mississippi State, it's a small town. You'll build connections through different areas just by being involved in a variety of different things. So I'm very involved in soccer, and those are one of the biggest like growths and connections around for me in Mississippi State. So
I would say like advisor is like more than a teacher. So he or she is not like some other faculty members to me. So she is more than a teacher. So like for me, as when I contact even from Bangladesh, I want to pursue PhD degree. That time the communication started, and then when I joined here, the first few months is for clarity. So what we say, it should be understandable to each other. So, and this is how like the professional relationship was grown when we worked together. She taught me, and we basically, I was clear to her, like shared every aspect of my like ups and downs, and that was like empathetically cared. This is how basically it happened and still going on.
Thank you for that. The other question we had was, why did you pick your advisor, or why did he pick you, or he or she pick you?
Students.
I can go. Okay. Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for coming.
So my advisor and I worked together undergrad already before I started grad school. So she and I had talked previously. And that's kind of how I got connected with her, was just through that. And yeah, I did look at other advisors and talk to other advisors, but it seemed to be a really good fit with my current advisor. And so that's kind of my story. It's really short. We worked together and then we continued to work together. So, it's probably not the normal approach either. Back in Christian, since they didn't do undergrad in Mississippi State, so y'all probably have a better perspective of how to find a professor and get through that. But mine approach to any of that.
usually a lot of times when you go to grad school, you go because of you selected advisor. You'll find that a lot, especially with international students, as they find there's like you probably have a contest that you find that they've found their advisor and they already have agreed to work for them before coming. For me, I was already coming in. I was already once I wasn't here already, but I found an advisor beforehand, but it wasn't through like the typical means. Like I wanted to necessarily do his research. I was just trying to get funding for school, but I ended up really liking my research and sticking with it longer term.
Okay. For me, like I had to go through the interview processes, like, and then she offered, and then I came here. So this is how it happened. Like,
Yes. I did have a follow-up to that for Bobby. Did you interview with other professors or was it just with Dr. Tian?
Oh, yes, I had some interview with other professors and like I had another offer with the University of Technology in Sydney in Australia. Because that time, like I worked in the like the supply chain sustainability, and that professor was like relevant to that area particularly, and he was like offering me to join in his like that time. And besides this, I had another talk with the University of that time it was Windsor, but it did not happen.
So I guess we already kind of covered like what your direction or interests were before joining doing the PhD, or if the research topic was chosen for you guys as you started your PhD.
Well, that,
My research
we
topic,
can answer it. No.
I mean, my research topic wasn't necessarily wasn't chosen for me, but it was definitely where the funding and resources were at, especially like, because like my advisor was, I was first interested in working with like healthcare data. I did some projects with that before going into additive manufacturing, and he wanted me to potentially pursue it more, but I think it was more, I think the additive space had longer term funding, and I mean, I was more interested in that than healthcare data at that time. So that's where and then our advisors have all experience in data-driven modeling, so it just kind of came naturally to go into that area.
So I will say like I had much interest like on supply chain sustainability and like lean manufacturing, Lean Six Sigma, these type of approaches. So, but when I contacted with her, I like agreed to for finding me for PhD like admission, and I was just checking the papers. It seems complex to me. Like lots of new terminology and everything. So, but when I was here, I took a little bit time to understand some jargons and everything. And my advisor also taught me like robustly how to make some coding and implementation of different tools and techniques uh, for data analytics. And then in the process of time, I was fine and still trying to be fine. Thank you.
I would find that your advisors help you a lot more, help you a lot at the early stages. I think you mentioned that a little bit. And as you go on to your PhD, the less involved they are. So the more they will just allow you to go into your own exploration, go into your own interests, and ultimately they trust you with your writing and your programming more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it really boils down to your professor too, a little bit on how they plan on doing it. I know like our professor, like, or really what Christian was saying, I mean, really where the research money is available to do the research in. So like, I wouldn't say my topic like chosen for me, but the funding was there and the funding has a topic project, right? And so it's really more of like, this is what our project scope is in terms of what our data is coming from and what our focus is. And it's really up to us as PhD students to creatively fill that gap and fill the need there. And we come up with our own methodologies to do that. So it's not really like, hey, I need you to build this exact model for your PhD. It's really like, this is the problem we're trying to solve. And how can you help solve it? So it's like, come up with your own framework for that.
Usually your advisor is kind of broad topic they're trying to explore, and then they try to align with your interests and what you're working to fit the deliverables from the people that are funding them for that work.
And now we can go and talk about the job process. I know almost all of you have offers, so Durant has offer as Center for Naval Academy.
Center for Naval Analysis.
Yes, and Poppy is going to be Tiger, so at Louisiana State University. And Christian's already have done interviews with a few places. So how difficult was it applying to jobs? Yeah, as you neared your defense, and also an idea about the number of interviews you have already done, and or applications you've sent out, and just the search process in general.
Do y'all want to talk about academia first? 'Cause academia industry is kind of what we got here.
I would say it's definitely a challenging process applying for academia. I would recommend if you do go into that, the one thing I would do differently is have a lot more of my research done before going into that last semester, especially when you're applying for jobs. But what that process entails is you submit a research statement, teaching statement, sometimes a diversity statement, your CV, sometimes a leadership statement, just depends, and a cover letter. And so you submit that to each university, and then based off, hopefully, when you're submitting this, you're aligning the goal of what the job description is with what you're wanting to do. So there's there's some opportunities in manufacturing. Sometimes they just want somebody that's just doing machine learning. Sometimes they want someone completely different applications like healthcare or ergonomics, whatnot. So there's jobs out there, but you have to align what you're doing with what they're interested in. And then you submit your research plan, which is usually a 3-step type of thing to like where you could see yourself in the next 5 years, and then teaching statement. So hopefully you can speak from experience with teaching instead of on the other side of things. But you should if you don't have an opportunity to teach, you should be doing some outreach or other activities to kind of to supplement that. Like, this is what I would do. There's also preparing future faculty programs that you can talk about, like, oh, I've learned this, like this teaching style, or I've learned how the modular classrooms work better for students, all these different little aspects, and really give like your philosophy or what your take would be if you didn't have teaching experience. And then from there you go into discussion. You'll meet with the universities that like you online, and if that interview goes well, they'll invite you in person, and then from there you usually receive a job offer. But it's definitely a challenging process. Even the interviews when you go on in person, it's an all-day thing. You'll likely give a lecture and a job talk, and then you'll meet with people every hour. Like, it's a packed schedule. So by then, you really got to know what you want to do and really know what your field is, and be able to discuss collaborations with a variety of different professors. It's a challenging process, and so I'm still waiting. I've gone to Auburn and University of North Florida. I'm waiting to hear back from them for academia jobs.
I'm just totally agree with him, Christian, what he described. Like, it's a journey, but I can remember the boys from student, he was telling me you can expand your network, So network means you need to apply. So as much as you apply, you have the probability for hearing back from them. And I applied like 50 plus probably. This year it was like high volume of like openings over there. And I applied few out of industrial engineering also. But honestly speaking, I have not heard back out of industrial engineering. Probably one student had
That's tough.
phone call interview. But in terms of phone call interview, I feel that the rate was really high. And I had some like on-site interview, and I find like each campus is different, and their like way of talking, their requirement is also different. So it's like the pre-training probably helps, like, to understand what will happen and how to respond to them. So these things are important, because I hear back that like every single things are basically people they observe and they bring this in the table. So
You're getting interviewed, like you're saying, you're getting interviewed the whole time, right? Even when you're eating, every moment you're there, it's an interview.
And I also like learned that, so you should make the environment so that nobody is negative to you. Like, so the search committee will bring the strength and weakness of each individual candidates over there, and all the faculty will be there. And then they will make some voting. So, so during that time, so that nobody brings some negative points to the table. We should keep in mind. So these things are basically pre-studied. So this is how it happens. And ultimately the luck is the most important thing, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, so that, I mean, there's a lot of overlap between industry and academia, in terms of like the application process. Because in industry, there's really, I guess, two classes that you could go into. You could go into like a research-based industry type job, which is where a lot of PhD students go, or you could go into more like applied industry where you're working directly with like manufacturing or something in a capacity where you're not doing as much R&D. It's more focused on like getting boots on the ground, getting things working and running. So in those processes, I think the best ways to approach it is to apply, and then apply some more. It's, especially in the market right now, there's a lot of job postings, but there's also a lot of candidates. And especially in industry, I think a lot of times as a PhD student, you're competing for jobs that might also be better suited for a master's as well. The employers may not always be looking for a PhD student. So that's one thing to really keep in mind when you're doing your job searches. You know, like some of these jobs may not consider you as a candidate because they're looking for masters. And to them, there may not be a big difference in like your experience versus a master's student, but to them there may be a big difference in what they want to pay you versus what their own perspective of what a PhD would bring versus just a master's student would bring or whatever. So keeping that in mind helps understand what jobs to apply for and where to go. But I think the biggest thing to start with before you start apply is understand what you want to do to some extent. You don't have to have a perfect picture, but know what field you want to go into because that will guide your job searching. And I guess the flip side of that is don't limit yourself to that though. I've had all my experience in manufacturing, but I'm going to be a data scientist. So like I am doing something that is not necessarily directly related to manufacturing. They overlap each other. The tools we've used in our research.
More like a skill.
Right.
In manufacturing, it's more of an application.
Right.
See it.
Exactly. So they overlap each other, they complement each other. But like if you in your applications are focused just on manufacturing, you may not see a data science role, even though the qualifications are that you can do Python, you can do machine learning, whatever. If those are the qualifications and that's what you've studied, then sell yourself to that job. Don't feel like you don't qualify for it because the title is a different thing. So just apply to a bunch of different things in the field of your interest and don't get discouraged because a lot of companies won't really get back to you in a timely manner. And most of them probably won't. And I don't know if it's the same in academia, most of them probably won't even say anything to you. You'll just give it 4 months and then write them off. So really being organized when you approach that process helps a lot. What I did is I made an Excel sheet and every time I entered a date, after so many days, it would turn yellow and I would know, okay, you know, they're probably not interested in me or it's a busy process. And then it would turn red like after a month. And I was like, okay, I can go ahead and kind of count this guy. Odds are they're not gonna get back to me. Now a month may be short. I can't remember what time I actually used, but you know, setting that up and that way you can track what you've applied to, and you don't want to apply potentially to the same job. I mean, I guess you can, some people do apply to the same thing, but I like to kind of make sure, okay, I've already applied to this company a couple times and they doesn't seem interested in me. I'm just going to focus my efforts somewhere else. So really, I guess, I know there's a lot of information I just gave, but keeping in mind, like, look more for the industry you want to be in, not the company you want to be in. Because that having just a company in mind is going to potentially be discouraging if they're not hiring or they're not looking for someone. Because I mean, I know I applied to several places I thought I'd be qualified for and they weren't interested in me. So it was like, well, you know, maybe rethink, you know, do I really need to go down this route? You know, maybe I should diversify my applications. And so.
The aspect of getting to that next interview stage.
Yeah, definitely. And to add to that, I should have probably mentioned that too. I know I'm just all over the place, but Christian's right. I was at a conference and just getting to meet them, talk to them. You would not believe the amount of success rate you have actually talking to somebody.
Someone being in person really matters.
Oh, yeah. And don't rely on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is great. Don't get me wrong. You should use LinkedIn as a great tool. But I've got, and I didn't do this, and I kind of wish I had in retrospect, 'cause I probably would have had a better career. I looked at, I think I applied to 40, 50 jobs, and I heard back from 2. But one of them I just wasn't really interested in. So I only had 1 interview and really only had 1 offer. But had I gone back and do it again, I would have actually gone on LinkedIn, found the posting, found an HR person and emailed them. Because the postings, you're really, really competing with a lot of people and you may not stand out. But emailing is a really good way to kind of make that connection. I have friends who've got job offers doing that, just going through that email process. Or taking a risk and looking at a company that you have no idea what it is. I didn't know what that company was. I'm working for now. I sat down, I talked to them, I learned about them, and they liked what I had to offer. I liked what I learned about their business, and then I went home and I researched them. And then the next day we had an interview and I talked to them more about it. So, taking a risk and looking at jobs you might not have even thought about, definitely just, again, I guess the highlight is apply.
So
Cast large net.
if you do have an opportunity, I would highly suggest going to conferences.
And I'll say that the concentration does matter in terms of academic, like which domain you are working on, because these days, like each and every people are doing data science, deep learning, machine learning. But what you are doing, in which area, I think they care about that. Is I feel.
And that's probably where the 2 diverge a little bit, because in industry, it's really like, they're looking for smart people who know how to get in and do it, even if it's not the same. Like, I guess with PhD, part of it is your specific knowledge you gain, like, on that problem. And in industry, sometimes they look for that, but like the company I'm at now they're just looking for someone who can solve, and have shown that they could do it through that. And the application, and I'll touch on it really quickly, the application process is kind of similar to academia. It depends. If you go to more like hands-on industry, it's going to be a lot more like applied, quick interviews, like a regular type of application. But I did a research-based industry job, and so that's going to be very similar. You've got to submit your research work and like a page about that. You've got to submit writing samples. You've got to submit like an hour. I did like an hour-long presentation, and boy, they ask questions because they don't have any. A lot of them didn't have any subject matter and expertise in what I was doing. So like a lot of interviewing process. And when you do a research-based job, it's going to be pretty similar to academia in terms of submittals.
Matters to be able to communicate what you do well.
Especially, I say that Christian is not shared. Like you need to make a research talk during on-campus visit, and in some universities you need to make some teaching demonstration also in class. And all full days you'll be like under the interview process, like different faculty members, with dean, with others like this.
Yeah, that's all the questions we had. Are we gonna open up any questions to the floor?
How many interviews you have? One,
I had 1 real interview, like official, actual. It involved 3 interviews, but like it was just like 1 company. But I had like a couple other soft interviews because I networked, which is, I guess, something else important to mention is like networking who you know. Also, if you know someone in industry or in academia who can vouch for you, that goes a long way too.
I've seen
you know someone in conference,
I didn't know. Now I say that I didn't know anyone at this company, but like I have friends at other places that put in work for me. And that's those soft interviews. I got to talk to managers and stuff about my work.
it's like refer,
I'm sorry.
it's like refer you.
Yes, basically they refer me. They personally sent an email to their manager of my resume. So I get to like talk on the phone to them or whatever, but it wasn't like in a formal interview process. So I really had 1 to answer your question on that.
I know I have a few friends that've got jobs that way where they've already been somewhere and someone else connected them. They're like they either gone to the same school, worked in the same lab. It's a good way to get your first aid. So that's why like connections matter, and talking to multiple people here at state matter.
And network is very important.
Screening is important.
First impression, same.
In terms of like, I had like Zoom interview a lot. Like I
You had a lot
got
of
like
connections.
I got like 16, 17 probably. And still now, yesterday I also got, but I'm not like attending any. And then like if they prefer, then they call me for on campus. So I
So on the campus, how many interviews you have?
I had 5, but 3-1 on each row. It was like really hard to meet. Like it started like within 10 days, probably 3. So I need to travel.
Oh.
So it was just in the last month,
Mhm.
in February.
Yeah.
All was in February. So it was good, like the decisions came, like decision making, then I can compare.
Yeah.
But I got the just accepted. Yeah, luckily all interview held in the same time, like 10 days or 15 days within
But
15
you
days.
feel safe that, for example, when the second interview is going to third interview, you say that, okay, they think about me, maybe I'm
But
qualified.
it is like beneficial, wouldn't I feel that like I made 2 interviews before the business student.
Oh, practice, yeah.
It gives me like extra mileage, you know.
Confidence.
So,
Interviewing is just good, just to get used to talking to people in that way
Mhm.
and just getting that experience with that type of communication.
Yeah.
it helps. Like, yeah. And we had like Christian, me, Durant, and we also like had some mock presentation here. It was really well.
And those
Which
conferences.
conference you would recommend?
For data science, Informs is probably the
Yeah.
best one you could go to.
Informs was the best one I went to, I think. Informs was good. Bamac was good for manufacturing.
Not specifically like the for industrial engineers, many people go in like informs, but for especially for data science, there are lots of conferences like the Neuro IPS, so like another computer science AI related many conferences. Happening these days.
Informs is like the balance between.
Big.
A lot of it is just a variety of different industries.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of, you'll have business people there, you'll have industrial engineers, you'll have data scientists. It's all these different people coming together to discuss, and like they'll have, and Amazon usually sponsors it. They'll have all the big industry companies and stuff.
But, yeah.
All
You know,
of it. And it's a national conference, like people are coming from all around the world to go to that one.
It's overwhelming. There's so much stuff. I mean, you can't, it's like was it 4 or 5 days, something like that? It's like,
5 days.
I mean, and it's like 7 to 10 sessions happening simultaneously. So you literally can.
We all present our own research there, and then we make discussions with the people in that group.
And there's workshops and there's all kinds of just things to get involved with and get with the career fairs they have. That's where I met, was at the career fair. It's usually just open to anyone to walk in and talk and stuff. And so,
And it's important, for example, first year of PhD or, for example, third year of.
It's better to be like going there your third or fourth year. I'd say.
yeah, I think going
Or like
there,
whenever you're in that job search stage.
yeah. And once you've developed research and have research, like going is one thing, but going and presenting research that you've spent a lot of time.
Your
in.
advisor won't send you if you don't have to present that.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
Expensive.
Yes, very expensive.
Me and Christian was last time was sharing the room together even
Indianapolis.
in police and good experience over there.
Yeah, sometimes you get a good city like Phoenix, and then sometimes you get like, I went to Columbus, Ohio for one, and boy, howdy, was that an interesting town. There's not a lot that goes on in Columbus.
We
Ohio.
got to go to Arizona last time.
That was
went to the Grand Canyon afterwards.
Wow.
That was,
That's cool.
Phoenix was good. And I think IISC is
There's a
good
good-
this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
Definitely about this.
Oh, yeah, we'll check it out. Yeah, I wish I could go that one. I wish I could go that one.
Lots of snow probably.
Yeah.
Don't like. So. And IISc is the best for industrial engineers also.
It's a good one.
Mhm.
I think it's more.
That's a lot of
big
human
for
factors and
it.
economics are there too.
Yeah.
If you want to visit the manufacturing, then NAMRA.
Yeah, NAMSEC, MSEC is good. It's small. It's 3 days, but it's good. You can.
Yeah, this.
Okay. Thank you.
I got an answer for this.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I didn't get it then. I haven't got an email back yet. Okay.
And today decisions.
Oh, you got it today?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't,
Mhm.
fingers crossed. We'll see.
It's all right.
I have another question. So, what do you think made you stand out to get the positions that you got offered? If you have any idea.
Start.
Mhm.
I think for me, just from my interview and discussion with them, I stood out because I was, I don't know, I was a go-getter. Like, I wasn't just, I get, that may not be the right word for it, but basically in a sea of data science and people who are focused on getting careers in data science, I was someone from manufacturing who knew how to apply data science to a specialized area, but also knew enough about it to know it's applicable in other areas. And I think they liked the fact that I was able to explain something that they weren't familiar with in a very clear manner, in a way that showed that I had a pretty strong grasp of how to apply data science. So despite having a different background, I had a unique perspective that someone who just went to school with data science may not have.
Mhm.
So I think that helped set me apart. And I think they also were looking for someone to kind of bridge the gap between like manufacturing, in the sense of like advanced manufacturing for specialized cases and data science for that specific application. So I think there was definitely a little bit of a need that helped me stand out, but I think it also was just the fact that I had more of a diverse background than some of the other candidates, and that might have shown that I may have been a little more gung ho about it, or more invested in it, or just have that really, I don't know what the right word is, I'm probably not using the right word for it, but I was just a little bit different than some of their other candidates.
To summarize what I think he's saying is he had really good communication skills
Mhm.
to be able to explain his.
Obviously not just then to get the word out. Normally, I guess I do.
And he had experience working with products. So where he did a project and applied it and you can show the ups and downs and challenges of that product and how we got to the final solution.
I guess, yeah, communication would definitely be what, and I think that's probably the common denominator for everyone, is being able to talk really well about a topic that you are very knowledgeable to the point where you know the nuts and bolts of it, to someone who doesn't know anything about it, and then have them walking away being, man, that's cool and I know about it.
Mhm.
That right there is a very good way to
How
write
an
an
internship can help during the PhD?
an internship definitely can help. But yeah, I don't want to say everything. I'll let answers you guys go ahead.
It should. And most importantly, like in academia or everywhere, there's some job description about there. If those things match with you, then you'll be fine. And another thing is that, like in academia, after on-campus interview, during on-campus interview, they're looking for like how much collegious you are. So most important thing, we need to spend lots of time with you in academia. It's a lifelong process. So they're trying to find like a colleague, a good colleague like this.
Mhm.
So this is the thing I find. And they also share some strength, departmental head. So even when you make exit interview, like after the day-long interview session, then you may ask some of the strength and weakness.
Mhm.
And they are very honest to share those things.
Mhm.
And you may also share your idea, how can you come up or just remove your weakness and go up with the upcoming days with them. So these things they like, I believe.
Okay, we have time for one more question and then we'll do some wrap up things. So. We good?
And then we can wrap it up.
Yep.